Hello, Ray Phoenix here. Welcome to Let's Play Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage Part 10. We're finally going to one of the greatest levels in the game, the infamous war zone known as Zephyr. This level really is a war zone of a level, and we're paying Moneybags a lot of money and gems, so we could go to this war zone and, dish out some justice against whatever's going on in this war zone. They honestly need Spyro to help them out, because Spyro has way more military expertise than any of the soldiers that are in this war. I also think this is where they got some of the ideas for what's that game? Yeah, Ratchet & Clank. More specifically, Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal. That game has a lot of war stuff in it, and it most likely came from this level, Zephyr, a war zone. It was mentioned in the Breeze Harbor level, where the Breeze builders said they were going to make their counterattack on Zephyr, which is where the land blubbers are, where they're going to fight against the land blubbers. But this time around, we're not fighting for the Breeze builders like we did in Breeze Harbor. This time around, we're going to be on the land blubber side. We're switching sides. So at least we'd ask the question, who's the real villain in this war? Who's the real bad guy in this war? And are we assuming one of them at least must be bad guys? It's like we're assisting bad guys pretty much, essentially. At least one of them must have been. Or maybe they're both villains and Spyro is, really a villain. Some people might consider Spyro to be a bad guy because he blows fire on everything and he fries enemies. Some people would say it's pretty cruel, so they'd see Spyro more as being a villain. So Colonel Blub is telling us that, they want our support in this war against the Breeze builders. So pretty much got to be a George Washington-like figure and run for this epic battleground. We're gonna go and murder these Breeze builders, murder these bird things, probably fry them and eat them later. So they're giving us something we could use. And I'm sure Spyro would love to get a job frying stuff and frying food. With his seemingly infinite flame breath. And Spyro still has all the weapons. Apparently the reason why Insomniac didn't want to make Spyro anymore was because he can't hold a gun, and this level demonstrates that he is incapable of using a gun. He's in a war zone. Some people would say it's crazy to go into a war zone without a gun, but not if you're Spyro, because he has something better than a gun. He has flame breath, and he has these really hard horns on his head that can easily charge down, destroy most enemies easy. You'd have to be a fool to want to take a stand against Spyro the Dragon. Mess with the dragon, feel the burn is what they used to say in the commercials for this specific game, Spyro 2. I remember the specific part of the level too, and I used to see trailers for PlayStation games sometimes, and I'd be like, oh, this is PlayStation, the next generation of new gaming or something. That would show scenes from this. It actually showed the specific level and the specific scene where Spyro's controlling this cannon thing, and he's turning it around and shooting at stuff, and I thought it was really impressive. Oh, whoa, you can control this tank thing, this turret tank cannon, whatever you call this thing. You actually get to shoot down enemies. This Spyro 2 must be the greatest game ever. And I was even getting those, getting like, oh, this really is like the greatest game ever when I was playing it back in 2007. It's kind of funny too, because I kind of got this game because of some random thing I babbled about. I was babbling to my mom once about PS1 games that I wanted, and one of the random games I babbled to her that I wanted was Spyro 2, and that's why sometime later, I actually got a copy of Spyro 2, mostly because I babbled about it a while ago. Because to show how babbling about random stuff actually could be quite, advantageous to babble about stuff. Maybe that's why I babble about useless crap all the time that no one cares about. For that one odd chance that it might actually result in me getting something that I'd really want. An epic, legendary game like Spyro 2. Face it, this game is a lot better than Super Mario 64. It's way better than Crash Bandicoot. I wonder how people think Crash Bandicoot's better than this game. This game is by all means a lot better than Crash Bandicoot. Seriously, if you think the original Crash Bandicoot's a better game than this, tell me why. I'd like to see an essay from you explaining why it's better than Spyro, and I'd be willing to do the same too. Write a whole long epic essay about why Spyro is way better than Crash Bandicoot. Spyro's by all means a lot better than Crash Bandicoot. Spyro should have become like a household name like Sonic the Hedgehog or Mario. But then he entered a dark age, which is a whole nother story. He actually killed this Breeze builder here by aiming this tank cannon thing over. Look, we killed him. Unfortunately, they don't have crosshairs on them, so we don't really know exactly what you're aiming at. I think you have to take a lot of shots before you actually get the correct target. And they also, those things also throw those TNT things that are going to have to jump. We're kind of like the barrels in Donkey Kong now. I'm starting to see some Donkey Kong influence in this game. I think there was some similar stuff to that in the original Spyro, if I'm not mistaken. There were some levels like this where you have to there's these inclined planes you have to run up and dodge the TNT. I remember Spyro 1 actually did have some of this in some of the last levels in the game. That Twilight Harbor level, whatever it was called. I remember they actually did do stuff like that. So there's recycling stuff they did in a previous level from a previous game. Only in the first game, they did it way later in the game, and this time around, they're giving it to us very early in the game, actually. There are these breeze bullets. Here we could kill these things. I don't think there's any, like, I'm not sure if any power-ups in this level that are triggered by killing enemies. But by doing this and just keeping in position, they're eventually going to destroy both of them. There's 20 of these, 20 breeze builders that we've destroyed. There's all this TNT here. All this TNT is going to blow up, and somehow that corporal guy embedded and all that is not going to get killed somehow. I know, they're land blubbers. They're made out of blubber. Maybe their bodies can somehow absorb, attacks from things so much. They absorb so much, maybe like a bullet sponge or something like that. Like what Minion was like in that Twisted Metal 2. That Twisted Metal 2 mod where he becomes a... No, that was Minion. It was also the final boss too. They become bullet sponges. They could just shoot the crap out of them, and they would barely take any damage from it. There was this other, like, mini-game challenge thing where there's these calyxes. Yeah, those creatures are called calyx. We have to get them to go to Little Bo Peep because he lost his calyx. Little Bo Peep always loses his calyx. We have to go find them for him. We haven't even talked to him yet. We already know about him, and we're gonna already start. So like Spyro already knows what's happening. Well, it's actually because I've played this game a lot before, so I know exactly what's happening. Imagine they made a jumping flash game that was like this, where you actually do tasks for people and actually do like missions and tasks. Oh wait, they actually did do that. That was in Jumping Flash 3. That Jumping Flash game that only came out in Japan. I still wish there could have been more Jumping Flash games, and they could have had more, challenges and missions like that. And I've jumped the more and think of it now. Jumping Flash 3 was a very ambitious game. Sure, we not have been as good as the first two, but I could see what they were trying to compete with. They're obviously trying to make it more very reminiscent of Spyro, because games like Spyro were becoming popular at the time. So they were keeping up with the times. Those people that make Jumping Flash, at least they know how to keep with the times and don't try to make dated games. I think the PS1, I think I mentioned this before, PS1 is like one of the few systems I know of that had so many eras during the time it was out, like so many generations and eras that were all quite different from each other. Like first there was stuff like Jumping Flash, then later there was stuff like Spyro, and then at the very end there was like, we had mostly all sports games pretty much because people weren't really caring about making new games for the PS1, which actually did undergo a lot of eras and changed a lot of the time too during the course of its run. It actually did go through a lot of changes and a lot of, and there was all like developments and advancements. Spyro really does reflect on that. I guess that's why they made Jumping Flash 3 the way it was because they wanted to, keep with the times, make it more relevant to games like Spyro, which are coming out at the time. Spyro and Jumping Flash, I think, would make an awesome crossover. I don't think that would be as epic as a crossover of Jumping Flash and Ape Escape, two of Sony's most abandoned and forgotten franchises that they never seem to care about or acknowledge anymore. It's quite sad, actually, they abandoned those franchises. I wish those franchises could, still be, relevant and current today, like Mario and a lot of other stuff. I wonder if a lot of kids these days have heard of Spyro. I wonder how famous Spyro still is today after all these years. Do kids know about him? I know a lot of kids didn't seem to. I know there was kids that were like years younger than me that didn't really know who Spyro was until they saw him in Skylanders, and that's when they first heard of Spyro. It's like, really? You didn't know about him until Skylanders? Well, that's not really that surprising if you consider the fact that some friend I heard of once, he didn't know who Sonic the Hedgehog was before Wreck-It Ralph, so I guess that's kind of, I guess it makes sense. I guess that's kind of understandable then. And a lot of people never heard of Vector Man. A few weeks ago, I brought my copy of Vector Man over to a barbecue that I went to, and then some like 80-year-olds were looking at it thinking, what the hell is that thing? I said, it's Vector Man for the Sega Genesis, and like, never heard of it before. That's not surprising. 80-year-olds have no idea who Vector Man is on the Sega Genesis. And some old guy there was looking at it. And his son was there too, and his son looks like he could have been the same age as me, and he's like, do you know what that is? Do you know what Vector Man is? And then he's like, nah, I have no idea, never heard of it before. He's like the same age as me, doesn't know Vector Man. But again, a lot of people didn't really know about Vector Man. Vector Man was never really that popular. I don't think he ever truly caught on. Heck, I have a friend in real life that's way older than me, and he doesn't really know much about Sega stuff. He's only heard of the Sega Master System because I've told him about it, and that's pretty much all he knows about Master System. Oddly enough, the Sega Master System may have been one of the first Sega systems I've ever heard of before. So we're hearing about there was a system that competed with the NES that was made by Sega, and it sold nowhere near as well as the NES, and it competed with the NES, so I assume they were talking about them. They didn't call it the Master System, but I assume they were talking about the Master System. They just called it the Sega, which there's no such thing. There's no gaming system that's just called Sega, just like there's no video game system out there that's just called Nintendo. Those are companies, not gaming systems. But based on the description, they were most likely talking about the Sega Master System, a system I wish I could have more games for, but they're very expensive. Just like the Nintendo DS. I got a Nintendo DS back in 2012, being overly hopeful and optimistic that I would be getting a lot of good games for affordable prices, but a copy of New Super Mario Bros. For a cartridge only for the Nintendo DS, it was like $40 back in 2012, and I thought, well, as time goes on, this is just gonna get worse and worse, right? Not exactly. I went to a thrift store a few days ago and I found a copy there for only $15, and it came with 2 other DS games as well too, so I got all that for $15. That's a steal. That's like, especially when you take inflation into account too, the fact that $15 now is not worth as much as it was in 2012, and they were asking $40 for that stuff back in 2012, so I guess that's actually, I actually really did luck out there. New Super Mario Bros. Or the Nintendo DS. I actually got a DS for free years ago in 2012 from some guy that was getting rid of it. It was a free giveaway. It was a Nintendo DSi, unfortunately, so it has a stupid camera on it in lieu of a Game Boy Advance cartridge slot. If I had a choice, I would have chose to get one that could play Game Boy Advance games, since I still have a lot of Game Boy Advance cartridges. But, beggars can't be choosers, and it was a free giveaway, so I guess you can't really complain about something if you're getting it for free, right? I'm really glad that I got a DS, and even in all fairness, I still have my Game Boy Advance SP that I got at a thrift store back in 2010, so I'm still glad I have that. The Game Boy Advance cell phone, as I like to call it sometimes. It looks like one of those flippy cell phones from the 2000s, those clamshell cell phones that flip open a lot, and the buttons even feel like cell phone buttons. They're small, they make noticeable clicking noises as you press them, click, 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 click. Then again, my laptop that I got in 2021, which is now 3 years old, I'm still using it to this very day. It has keys they feel nice. They do make a lot of sound, like an old-fashioned typewriter sometimes when you type with that thing, like click, 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 like it makes like hard clicking noises for typing. So you can't really type discreetly on that thing anymore. Everyone's gonna know you're typing stuff. Kind of like those phones they have in South Korea and Japan that make those obnoxiously loud clicking noises when you shoot photos of them. That was their way of combating all the upskirt photo incidents that happen in South Korea and Japan. Apparently I feel like that happens a lot there. That might explain why on that Android gaming tablet I made that video of years ago that wasn't working anymore. It was like that. Whenever you shoot a photo, it made an obnoxiously loud clicking noise. I used to wonder why I did that. Well, I guess I finally got my answer. It was a Chinese Android-based gaming tablet that my father bought for me back in 2014. It had emulators for PS1 in it, it had N64, it had like Sega stuff, like Master System, Genesis, SNES, NES, N64, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. It had a lot of stuff in it too. It actually was a pretty ambitious thing. It had a web browser that was allowed to go on YouTube. That was a major plus. I think it ran the exact same OS that would run on an Android phone or an Android tablet. It felt kind of outdated as well too. Even for 2014, it was kind of like an outdated version of Android. I actually was watching videos of old Android phones years later, and it actually shows what some of them looked like back around like 2011, and it looks like they used a version of Android from 2011 in 2014, which I guess that's not the most outdated. I mean, I've seen people that use Android 10. People still buy phones with Android 10 on them, and some phone service providers that sell you those dirt cheap ZTE phones, they still have like Android 11 Go edition on them, which is kind of dated, and they still sell new phones with that on it. And it's Android Go, which is a severely lower, watered-down version of Android, kind of like a Windows 7 starter was for PCs. This is Ray Phoenix signing out.